here to give you the keys to the kingdom and all the little secrets that we've done. That's fine. It's a big industry. I wish Brenda doesn't take too close of notes because she's right up the street from me. But but everyone else is welcome to do whatever. I'm not the only one that has these ideas. Please, this is an interactive thing. So if you see something that's working for your school that might be of benefit to the others in the room, please feel free to go ahead and share that. Where this came from was at one time we were a Cessna Pilot Center. We are no longer, but the lady that you saw stand up from Flying Magazine, Julie Boatman at the time, was the head of the Cessna Pilot Center program. And during one of the Cessna Pilot Center seminars, she said, hey, does anybody have any questions out there that might help, that we can work with each other to help out on running our flight schools better? And somebody said, yeah, I'm having a hard time making money. Does anybody have any good ideas on things that I can do to make my flight school more profitable? There were 88 flight schools that were represented at that seminar. And Julie just tossed out, oh, that's a good idea. How many flight schools here consider themselves profitable? You know, we were getting by okay at the time. You know, and I raised my hand and started looking around, and there were two other hands in the air. And that's people that are willing to admit that their business is not making money. And so Julie, love her to death, came over and said, okay, Bob, what's the secret? I had no secrets, but we've done some things over the years that have worked, and that's what we're here for. And please, like I said, this is, if you've got something to add, please, if this triggers something with you, something that you see up on the screen, but the absolute best part, the thing that has put us over the top, is right at the end, and we're going to lock that door before we go into that. And you're going to shut off that feed. All right, so one of the things that Julie pointed out was, what's the key to being profitable? We've all seen this. Good chuckle there. What's the key to being profitable? It's a real simple formula.
Making more than you spend.
Exactly. Come on. Take in more than you spend. That's the simple formula. So there's two parts to this formula: what you take in and what you spend. So we're going to look at different ways that we can increase the income to your flight school, and some things that you can do to decrease, this is going to be a problem, things that you can do to reduce your expenses. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is, what can you do to bring more money in the door? Okay, yeah, we got some absolutely shameless advertising that's going to happen here for all accounts, so I apologize ahead of time. So first thing is, what is making money at your flight school right now? What things are making money and what things are making the most money? So concentrate on the things that are making the most money and do more of it, okay? So we're going to put a pin in that picture on the right here and come back to that in a second. But if you look, if your school is anything like our school is, and I say our school because this presentation was a mess until that lady right there in the red hair got a hold of it and beautified it. So that's Carol. So what are some things that are working well for you now? Which things are you just making a tight margin on? Usually the tight margin stuff is the airplanes, and that's what we're promoting the most. That has got, by the time you pay for fuel and insurance and tie down and maintenance and all the other expenses, if your school is anything like ours, those margins are razor thin. You're going to make more money on the instruction and even more money on some other things that we're going to talk about here in a second. What COVID, terrible thing. It's been wonderful for us. It pushed us into doing classes on Zoom. So we're doing a lot of that. We can do that without the danger of the infecting one another. And it also opens it up to a bigger audience. And we can record those Zoom sessions, and we can charge people for classes that are recorded. So a lot of different ways to make money with some of those services on Zoom. We're going to talk about how we handle classes outside the normal realm of instruction. Okay, if you have any agreements with any aircraft manufacturers, we had Cirrus here today. If you're a Cessna Pilot Center or anything associated with Cessna, Diamond, and even some of the larger aircraft manufacturers, TBM, go seek out your local sales representative, because one of the things that we found out is that there are a lot more people that are capable and willing to purchase aircraft than we believe. Just because the guy drives an old beater car and comes in blue jeans and an old t-shirt, that doesn't mean that that person doesn't have the wherewithal and the interest to buy a new aircraft. So those the aircraft sales folks know that those people come in all shapes and sizes, and that they have to learn to fly at some time, and they learn to fly at flight schools just like ours. So if you can get agreements that, hey, I give you this referral, you give me some money, then we have made over 6 figures in referrals from the sales of new aircraft. We're in a very good demographic location, but keep your feelers out for places that, or for people who are expressing interest, and we pass that along to the flight instructors. So whenever a flight instructor says, hey Bob, I've got somebody that's interested in buying a new Cessna or Cirrus or Diamond, and I make the referral, when that sale is made, and that actually before the check comes into us, that check goes out to the instructor. So they get a piece of it, and that lubricates those wheels. So that's one thing to. I'm sorry? Yeah, we could. Get a Redbird, okay? I told you there was going to be shameless advertising going on here, and I'm not just saying this. If you look at the percentage on your airplanes, at best, you're probably getting 20%, depending if it's a leaseback aircraft. If you own the aircraft, then it may be more. But for our Redbirds, we pay Redbird $7.50 an hour for using that Redbird as part of the sales contract, or the service contract. We charge $75 for it. That's a 90% margin. Okay, then put the instructor time on top of that. This is one of the highest profit things that we do. Okay, so if you don't have a Redbird, and I'm not just saying it for the benefit of the guys in the back, if they weren't here I'd be saying the same thing. If you don't have a Redbird, get one. It is, those things print money. It is a mint.
Would you repeat what's that net margin?
90%.
Okay, that's a pretty good number. Okay.
90. There's nothing even close in anything else that we do. So what we're going to talk about here a little bit next is branding. Branding is an extremely important part of what you want to do as a flight school, and it's going to depend on where you're at, on how you go about doing this. Yeah. Yes, Carolyn, I know, you're right. So why is branding important? It makes your flight school different from another flight school. It shows people that your product is slightly different. Brenda, just don't take notes. If your flight school is different from the flight school that's down the road, and it's going to add value to your flight school in doing so. And you've got to do it in a way that you may know, and your competition even may know that there's that difference there. They're not going to say anything, but the important thing is that your potential customers can see there is a difference. I'm going to get a different product that is worth more from this flight school than I get from this flight school. And if you can do that, then what that's going to do is drive your target audience, your target customers to your door. And the little unwritten part about that, and drive the ones you don't want over to Bravo Aviation. So, I'm going to pick on you all day here, Brenda. So, let's see how we can do this branding thing. If you don't have a brand, that's what it looks like to the customers. They're all the same. You got a flight school, well, they've got airplanes, they've got instructors, so we know that the flight instructors in the airplanes are governed by the FAA, so therefore they all must be the same. I can get the same quality product and the same private pilot certificate from one flight school as the next. That's not necessarily true. We know that. We know the reasons that we think that our flight school is a little bit better. So we need to do something that's identifiable to the potential customers. It's going to drive them, the ones that we want, that's going to drive them to our door. So what happens is that you have a choice. The only way, if you can't differentiate your flight school from another flight school, the only way to differentiate is based on price. If you're competing based on price, it's a race to bankruptcy. Because when you lower your prices to get underneath your competition's prices, and they lower theirs to get underneath yours, it's just who's going to go out of business first wins. They're going to lose less money. So you can either develop your brand to make yourself different and more valuable, or you can go out of business. It's just a matter of how fast. So there's some gentleman a number of years ago. My wife is the vice president of a trade association in DC. She came back from a convention and she handed me this book and she said, I think you might want to read this. And I said, well, it's not very thick. Yeah. They don't use too big of words. I think I'm into this. So I read through this and it changed my life. The whole approach to business came from the Blue Ocean strategy. If you want to take a glance at it, just please just make sure it goes home with me. The premise of it is that there's a blue ocean and a red ocean. The blue ocean is the ocean that if you differentiate your brand from others, then you can do whatever you want. And I'm going to give you some examples of that here in a moment. If you're in the red ocean, that's where the sharks are feeding on each other. So that's the blood in the water. That's where everybody's competing based on price. You don't want to be in the red ocean. You want to be in the blue ocean. And you can charge whatever fair market value for your services that you want to. So there's a couple of businesses that have differentiated themselves that we might recognize. A while ago, before Cirque du Soleil, the circus, when we thought of circus, we thought of Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus that came around to town once a summer, and they'd stick around for a week or so and erect big top tents, and they had these named performers that were big in the circus world, but it didn't mean anything to us. We're going to see some clowns, some elephants, and some high wire acts, and that's it. And they charged, 10, 12, 15 bucks a ticket to get in. Cirque du Soleil came and they took street performers off Montreal streets, put them into an adult venue, and they charge $100 a ticket for doing something that cost them, well, now that they're in Vegas, it cost them a little more. But they revolutionized the circus. And now, where is Barnum and Bailey? They're out of business. They didn't follow along with the demands. They didn't differentiate their brand from other circuses that were out there. Cirque du Soleil did. Who else did it? Anybody recognize this name? You can't walk across the street without seeing a Prime truck driving up and down the street. They took business straight out of the doors of brick and mortar facilities and revolutionized the shopping that all of us do here. They differentiated their brand, and now the brick and mortar stores are struggling. We talked a little bit ago about this company. So when everybody pulls their phone out, people that have an Apple go, I got an Apple. People that don't, I got an Android. It's not a brand name, they got an Android. So Apple differentiated themselves and led this market. We'll get into some names at Starbucks. Before Starbucks came along, coffee was $0.25. Now Starbucks opens up and people are standing in line to pay $5 for a cup of coffee. How does that work? Okay, they made it different enough. They differentiated their brand enough. They made it a different customer experience enough that people would pass up paying $0.25 for a cup of coffee and stand in line to pay $5. Let's bring it a little closer to home. Before Southwest, most of the airlines looked pretty much the same. They operated pretty much the same. Southwest came along, they said, we're going to be a budget carrier, we're going to save money, we're going to get 8 turns a day out of an airplane instead of 6, 8 turns from the crews, and we're going to have people check in. I just did this to come here. Check in 24 hours so we know who's going to be there. We're going to have them line up in order, and so that they know, and we're not going to assign seats. Everything in that equation saves them money. It's a different customer experience. People are not mad about not getting seat pairs the way they want. They know if they check in early, they can get on board that airplane and choose the seat that they want. A different customer experience. That allows them to sell all of their tickets on their website, saving them big fees overall. Made them highly profitable, and then Herb Keller went and did the fuel hedging. Look at flight safety. Flight safety is recognized as being the leader in that end of aviation training. They just have built a better product. Then we've got this little company called Redbird. They came along, there was Frasca, there was other simulators out there, and they didn't really penetrate into this market, the market that you and I make up. Redbird comes along, they built a better product around a PC chassis, made it full motion simulator in some of them, do all these things, host flight school events like this, and they made it a very, very different experience, and they have run away with this market. I told you there'd be selfless advertising. So it is branding, keep in mind, so we got to get the brand out there every once in a while. So it can be done. You think, well, we train people how to fly. What are some things that I can do to differentiate myself from the flight school that's next door? If you're in an area that doesn't have competition, that you are the closest thing in that area for 50, 60 miles around, you don't have to worry about competition, or your challenge is just getting people to come to the airport to learn how to fly because they have only one choice. If you do have competition, you do need to worry about differentiating yourself. So where do we start? We start with a market survey. So let's see where everything's at. Look at the customers that you've got right now. You probably don't want to lose very many of those. There's 1 or 2 that you wouldn't mind seeing go someplace else. But most of them you're going to want to hold on to. So what do they want to see? Take a look at who are your current customers. Then who are your target customers? What customers do you want that you don't have now? And then what do your target customers want? Then we're going to go into looking at strengths and weaknesses. So do an inventory of what is it that makes your flight school great? What are the things that you have going for you? And we're going to take a look at some specifics here of the things that are in your benefit, and then take a look at it from a customer's point of view, not your point of view, but your customer's point of view on what is it that might attract customers that you want to your competition. And let's take a look at that. Then at the end, we're going to develop a branding plan, and this whole process sounds like it's all pie in the sky. If you really sat down here, pulled out your pad of paper, followed something close to this progression and this formula, it's going to take you about 30 minutes, and it's going to be the wisest 30 minutes you ever spent. So how do you capture the customers that you want? How do you come up with a branding plan to do that? We're going to take a look at these steps right now. So the market survey. What do your customers want? Who are your target customers? And what do your target customers want? So here's some things to take a look at. Are your current customers at the lower end of the spectrum of what you would like to see in there? And I'm talking about sport pilots, private pilots, younger pilots that don't have deep pockets, those that are coming in trying to do flight training on a shoestring budget, and those types of customers tend to be higher maintenance. They're going to, for them, what they are spending on flight training is a significant portion of the money that they have. And so to them, this is a whole bunch of money, and they ought to be getting a whole bunch of services and individual attention to go with that, because it's a higher percentage. For the target customers, so we're going to look at customers that want advanced ratings. So they're not only going to be your customer today, they're going to be your customer tomorrow, and then when they're finished with that rating, move on to the next rating. Then we're looking at those that want to fly the more expensive aircraft. These are the affluent professionals, and they could be your future instructors, and they can be potential leaseback owners. Okay, so these are the kind of target customers that you want to have, because if you run a well-organized flight school, and somebody that is in business who has been successful is going to recognize a well-run company when they walk in the door, and they will pay for that, and they will pay for that without complaining. So these are more of the customers that are going to bring success to your business. They are willing to pay for the value. They're not going to be the ones that quibble with you on, well, the flight school across the street's $3 an hour less for a 152. They're going to be the ones who recognize the value and are willing to pay for it. Those are the kind of customers that you want to get. So what is it that those kind of customers want? The first thing, they're going to want to feel safe. That's true with anybody at any level. So they have to see things that are telling them that this is a well-run and safely operated organization. That it's a professionally run operation. They need to feel welcome. So when they walk in the door, the CSR stands up, greets them, welcomes them in. If you remember back to the first time that you made that first step to walk into a flight school and get in the door, you felt like, I'm not worried, I'm not a pilot. These people all know how to fly airplanes. I don't know how to fly airplanes. I don't know much about this. It's a very, very intimidating process. You have to have your people tuned so that when they walk in the door, they can grab that person and make them feel welcome very early on, so that they feel like they're part of the club right from the beginning. So they want to see professional instructors that look and act like professional instructors. They want to see a great training program that's got all of the indicators that this is, somebody is tracking my training, this is training that's got procedures. I know what's expected of me for this lesson, and I can see what the benchmarks in the training are so that I can keep progressing towards the goal and the certificate that I want. They want to see, they don't all expect new airplanes, but nicely maintained and well-equipped airplanes. They know a beater when they see it. So they don't want to drive up in their one-year-old BMW or Mercedes and hop into something that looks like it's something out of a boneyard from the 60s. So they like to be able to progress into more advanced aircraft, and they like to see, again, shameless advertising, they like to see some simulators in the mix there, in a proper mix that's going to boost their flight training. Okay, let's take a moment. You've heard a burst of my ideas here for a second. Anybody have anything that they want to share on things that can leverage off of anything you saw? Jill, I'm sorry, HMFIC.
We're not going to say what that means if you don't already know. It would not be appropriate. The warm club-like atmosphere, I think is big. Like the customer experience, I think is what sets our company apart in our locale. Except for there are some clubs around. So if you want like an actual club, that's different. We kind of all work together. I'd say there is one competitor, and the biggest difference is they don't have someone there at their desk all the time. They're not warm and fuzzy answering the phone or returning calls. They have great brand new airplanes, so if people want the bells and whistles of brand new, fresh off the assembly line, it's the place to go. But they're not getting the rest of what they're looking for, and that shows in their turnover of instructors and customers. But the biggest thing I think is we are warm and welcoming. We want you to come in and have lunch or sit there and study, drop by and say hi. And also, if a plane breaks, we have kind of a little bit of everything. We don't have a standard fleet. If your $142 an hour Cessna 172 breaks, and you got a multi-engine instructor, and the only thing available is the $295 an hour Seneca, you can go, and at the same price as your other airplane. So, giving them the value, I think, is a big deal. And we can do that because we own all of our airplanes. We don't do any specs.
Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, I think making people feel valued, giving them a value. We charge for ground instruction. We don't give any freebies.
And that's the thing. It value. The person that's shopping based off of dollars per hour on the lower end of your fleet.
And our airplanes generally are less expensive than other places, but I think that is because we own them.
That's right.
Some of them are older, but we're a Garmin dealer. We put new stuff in them, so they're not. But people have proven, even people that have deep pocketbooks still return to our place. I think for the atmosphere and the value for their dollar, they can fly more hours. They still have a certain percentage of their income that they're going to spend on flying, and they can spend more of it. So we don't really look at other people's prices when we're setting ours. We look at what we need to bring in and what's reasonable for people to pay in our area.
And at the end of the day, what's the difference between a 2005 Skyhawk with a G1000 and a 2020 G1000? Not much. A little bit of shine on the paint, maybe.
We got a paint shop too, so that helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question. And by the way, the answer to your question is not what higher what would be different between 2000.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
The Capital 40.
That you have.
This is.
Yeah, if you want to talk about that, come to my briefing tomorrow.
This is a little unfair for you because
I'm used to unfair.
you are kind of the brand for aviation, right? But just because of people know who you are, and that's what's the brand. But outside of yourself, what do you think the biggest thing you have done with all your locations that has caused the highest payback on that differentiation of the other competitors, just the numerous locations you had? And the second thing is is that consistent across all locations, or have you had to do different things across all the various?
Less of that. We try to keep, if you walk into one Aviation Adventures at one location, the paint on the wall is the same color. The decor is the same. So they know, oh, this is Aviation Adventures. So they know, people like the consistency in some cases. And the other part of it, can you put a pin in that? And I think I'm going to answer that as we get down. And if I didn't towards the end, then throw something at me.
Okay.
All right. So let's take a look at the strengths of your school. And this is, again, this is from your customers and potential customers' point of view. So what do they see when they are looking at your school versus some other school? So some things, when I was working on the MBA, one of the few things I remember from that is location, location, location. And for anybody who's been in a business course, you've probably heard those words. The top three most important things are, where are you? So it starts with what airport are you at. Each airport has got a very different flavor to it. And then where are you on that airport? Are you at a primo location, or are you at a location that people have to hunt to come and find you? So take a look at that, and where you're at is where you're at. It's just, but just do an honest assessment here. Where, as I mentioned earlier, where are you? What kind of competition do you have? What does that other flight school that's across the ramp from you look like? What kind of instructor experience do they have? And we mentioned aircraft manufacturer affiliation. There's, and we're going to get into that here in a little bit. We talked just now about the quality and the variety of aircraft that you've got. The own versus lease back is more of a financial thing. I try to keep that, we don't advertise, oh, this is a flight school airplane versus this is a lease back airplane. I don't care, because I don't want the customers to think that they should be flying a flight school airplane as opposed to a leased airplane, because I'd be out of leaseback owners if anybody thought that that was the case. I don't care if people don't know. All they know is that it's got an Aviation Adventures sticker on the tail, and it's out there for them. What kind of training program to use? Is it Jeppesen? Is it Climb? We use the Cessna Pilot Center program. What are you a 141 school or not? Not everybody understands the difference between 141 and a 61 school. Do you have any VA programs after you've gone through the fun of standing up a 141 program? Then get ready, take a breath. You get to deal with the Veterans Administration, and if you think the FAA was a bunch of fun, you're in for a big surprise. Okay.
Oh boy.
And then the last thing here is examining authority. How many know what examining authority is? How many schools here have examining authority? Okay. And for what programs?
Private instrument, long commercial course, and the additional multi course, the other course.
Okay.
What fiscal?
Where?
Orlando Fiscal.
Orlando? Okay, great. This is a huge force multiplier here. So this partially answers your question, Todd. So examining authority does a number of things for you. If you're a 141 school, have been a 141 school and passed your probationary period, 2-year period successfully, then for each program you have to have put forth in the last 24 months at least 10 applicants with at least a combined 95% pass rate of their knowledge test and their practical test. So the thing that makes this, that in a room this size, that are you from the same flight school? Okay, so we had one other flight school that did, this is a tough hurdle to get over. And we'll talk in a second about, I heard you ask what FSDO, and I know where that comes from. That either, most flight schools are either too small to get the 10 applicants in a 24-month period, or they're too big to maintain the quality to get the 90%. So we just happen to find ourselves in a sweet spot, and you kind of, at least for a time, you have to be in that sweet spot where you can really focus on getting that number with that quality through. But once you're there, it's amazing, because the benefits to it are huge. So we've heard a little bit about the wait time for examiners in other breakout sessions. I know Florida it's pretty tough right now. So not only is it tough to get on an examiner's calendar, I've heard of some schools in California, you walk in the door, they do the initial paperwork for you, they're calling the examiner to schedule your check ride because it's got to be 4 months down the road. It's gotten a little better since they've removed the geographic boundaries, because you got some examiners that will travel, but it's still not an optimal situation. We're relieved from all of that. So when our students are able to complete the course with a final stage check with one of our chief or assistant chief instructors, they are given their temporary pilot certificate. No DPE, no FAA check ride required. It is such a relieving sensation that they don't have to go through that. They don't have the additional expenses of taking the check ride. What's a private pilot check ride cost now in your area? Just throw out some numbers. $800, $700, okay? So now our fees for doing the final stage check are higher, but they're not anywhere, it's not going to approach those numbers, okay? And because the DPEs are hard to schedule with, what does your student, from the time your school says, okay, you are ready for a check ride, go ahead and schedule with the examiner, what are they going to do for the next 2 months while they're waiting for their check ride to roll around? They've got to maintain that proficiency with an airplane and with an instructor that's going to cost them more money. And then for the privilege of going and paying a lot more money to the examiner. So, any of the examiners that you guys have any quirks, or are they all just straight by the ACS? Yeah.
No comments.
Say what?
No comments.
No comment, yeah. Yeah, so there is that to deal with. Now, I would like to think that the chief and assistant chief instructor at Aviation Adventures has no quirks. I have been told otherwise. But I don't know if I entirely believe that. But you get away from all that. You know, how many times have you seen that instructors go, okay, I have trained you by our school's procedures, I have trained you to what I believe the ACS standards are, but you're going to go for a check ride with Tim Jones. Now, when he asks you to do steep turns, this is what he wants you to do. And it's different from the ACS. There's none of that, okay? They are trained and tested by the standards that you have at your school. And this one, if you want a selling point that differentiates your school, there it is. They cannot fail a final stage check in this program. Impossible. There's no legal way to do that. If a student rolls in for a final stage check and they can't recognize an airplane 2 out of 3 times, we send them back for more training. That's it. There's no record of a failed check ride. So if you've got people that are in a professional pilot track, and they are going to have to sit across the table from a potential employer someday and answer the question that is always going to come, have you failed any check rides? They can go, no sir, I have not. Immediately they go, they beat most of the competition, because most of the people that are going to be applying for that same job have failed one, maybe two other check rides. Statistically, that's the way it works. Typically, if they fail 3 or more, they don't even get the interview. Yes, ma'am?
Did you say 95% or 90% pass rate?
To get it, 90.
90?
90.
That's better.
That's a combined, knowledge test and practical test. So most of the certificates have one knowledge test, one practical test. So if you're really good and they're all passing their knowledge tests first time, then you can drop down to 80% on the practical tests. But when you're talking about 80% versus 90% of 10 people, if you're just going for the minimums, you're talking about one person passing a check ride.
Do you put everyone through your 141?
Almost. Almost. For our private instrument, they have to have come from another school just about done, where they've got their knowledge test and their cross-country done, and then if all they need to do is finish up, that's the only way that I'll allow them to go 61. Okay? For commercial, with us, they've got 3 ways they can go. They can go 61, and it's whatever's best for the student. And the dividing line is usually about, if they've got 120 hours or more, and they're not in a VA or a college program, then it's usually better for them to go 61. Otherwise, it'd be better for them to go 141. We just added a reduced hour 141 program that's 60.5 hours. So, and we're getting people to start, we just got it, I don't know, 6-7 months ago. So people are starting to learn and go through on that. But with a reduced hour program under Subpart K, there is no examining authority that can be done. It has to go with the DPE. Okay? But if you can do it, do it. Now back to your question on which FSDO, okay? Because some of the FSDOs have said we don't have time, because there are certain parts that talk about qualifying for examining authority that say that the FSDO has to administer 50% of the final check rides. It's some very ambiguous language there. According to my POI, who just came through the qualification course with the FAA and talked specifically about this because he knew he was taking on a 141 school with examining authority, he asked the person that was in charge of the whole 141 program, how do we apply this 40%? What is that, or 50%? That's 50% of what? And what point do we need to be doing these check rides? And her answer back to him was, well, that's more of a goal than it is a limitation. So right away, that went out the window. And if your FSDO, if you think you could otherwise qualify for this, and your FSDO is telling you, no, they don't have time to do this, look up the Miller letter. The Miller letter is from the Inspector General of the FAA, and it says that in no uncertain terms that it does not matter what the capacity of the FSDO is to administer it. If you qualify, you will get awarded examining authority. Okay?
We've heard otherwise.
Yeah, our FSDO is the same.
we've
where
heard
they
that.
said absolutely not.
Like
We
they
will
won't
not
do
give
it.
anyone examining authority under our jurisdiction.
Look up the Miller letter.
What's
It's
Rochester?
It gives no wiggle room to the FSDO, none. So we were told the same thing.
And is it 10 per, like 10 per private, 10 per instrument, 10 per commercial?
Right. So we just set up, and we are going to focus on private. Okay,
Yeah,
we got private.
Private, but we would probably never.
Now we're going to focus on instrument, and we just got awarded CFII. So MEI is going to be kind of tough. Okay, we're getting close here. Wow, how much time do I?
Minus 2 minutes.
Oh, wow. So
the next this room will be in use in 13 minutes.
okay, we're gonna blaze through this then, because I want to get to the surprise at the end. So do the same kind of an assessment with your competition, so that you know what you're looking at, and then what you want to do is take a look at what your customers want, and then take a look at what your competition doesn't do. Don't go into head-to-head competition with competition for something that they're already doing well. Don't try that. Go for the low-hanging fruit here, and that's going to set up your plan. I'm going to give you guys a room here in just a minute. So get a mission statement together that's going to let your customers know what you're all about. Okay, we're not the cheapest, but we're the best flight instruction value in the National Capital Region. I guess you're just outside that area, Brenda. So what can you do to boost your brand? Take a look at the profitable programs. What aircraft do your people want to fly? Go either buy them, which is a tough market right now. The classes. The way we work classes is if an instructor teaches an individual class, they get half the gate. So whatever we charge, they get half of it. And it's a very profitable couple of hours generally for, we did the Rusty Pilot program, Rusty Instrument Pilot, all that kind of stuff. The branding, just like you've got here, if you may find it helpful to align yourself with one of the aircraft manufacturers. They've got different programs that help that along. Get a recognizable logo. Guess what color we kind of identify with at Aviation Adventures until Redbird stole it. We were here first. We talked about the office decor. Our instructors have call signs. That's kind of fun. And one of the things that unfortunately the FAA dropped the AC that covers it, the school call sign. And so if you come to Washington, D.C. and you hear Sky Ventures, and you will hear Sky Ventures when you come to Washington, D.C., then that every time somebody keys up a radio, you're advertising.
So what do you mean that they dropped the AC?
They don't allow, and in fact, they're considering dropping it for flight schools. It's radio telephony something. There was an AC that was out there that they suspended.
They changed it. They don't have no more like local or regional call signs. They want everybody to be ICAO call signs now.
Right, which we are. If I had time, I'd tell you a story on that. But bolster the training programs that are going to drive people in your door. If you want to identify with get with a college or university, you got to go 141. And then one of the things that to keep in mind, if you're going to stand up a VA program, you have to have been in operation in that location for 2 years. Okay, under that ownership. Okay, we'll blaze through that. So here's some classes that you could do. We do Meet the Examiners, where we invite the examiners in to come and give short presentations, and then it's just a question and answer. So it's a no jeopardy kind of a thing where students are going to be taking a check ride can get to meet with the examiner and ask them anything that they want. Events, any kind of community outreach that starts to reinforce your brand as well. The STEAM programs now are huge. There's just about every breakout period's got something with a STEAM program in it today. And then fly-out trips, you saw a picture from our Hudson River trip that just brings people and lets them know about who you are. So different things you can do to celebrate your success. And when you got somebody that gets a private pilot or a pilot certificate, we've got a red bell. Imagine that. We've got a red bell in or outside the office, and they get to ring that bell. Have the instructor put out a news note that so-and-so got their certificate, and this one was kind of funny. Is this going to key on the end?
Click the actual video, like on your trackpad.
Oh, there we go. This is a guy that just got his instrument rating at Leesburg 2 weeks ago. Come on. But every time we put out a news note, there's a raise in customer activity. There we go. So, let me get to the end here. We got the 90-10 rules. People familiar with that? It sometimes ends up you end up spending 90% of your time with 10% of your customers. Send them down the road. All right. You got better and more productive things to do. And establish the value of your brand and then charge fairly for it, which is more than what the competition is. And when you're out ahead, all the competition is behind you. Now let's take this one's real quick. Not a lot you can do to reduce expenses. You got to pay your people fairly. They got to make a living too, and they are professionals, and we need to keep that in mind. So we do things to motivate them. They've got company discounts for anything. They get an hour and a half of Redbird time every month to maintain their instructor proficiency. Every month, in fact, here in a little bit, we're having our Zoom staff call. Several people will get selected for a Superstar Award. They get an extra $50 in their pay for doing something above and beyond. Aircraft sales referral we've talked about, and then what they do for classes. What we can do for aircraft expenses, if you've got a deal with your base FBO, then if they can, most of the FBOs for the flight schools will give you retail minus. If you can go on cost plus, that's a little better generally. Now it could go, if the cost of fuel fluctuates high, it could be a little worse, but more times than not, it's to your advantage. And a lot of them have a customer reward program. I just received a box in the mail, $1,020 in Visa gift cards for one location's worth of fuel rewards. All right, get to the last one, insurance. Okay, this is the one. Sir, you could close the door back there. This is the little secret here. If you own aircraft in your flight club or your flight school, and they're paid off, it's customary you just carry full insurance on all your aircraft. But you can go liability only if those aircraft don't have a bank involved. Okay? This is what made the difference for us financially. We did this in 2002. You have to have the intestinal fortitude to be able to take a loss, okay? Either a total loss or a pretty major loss. But the insurance companies are perfectly willing to let you pay for them to accept that risk. And they're not going to do that. The numbers are in their favor. This is just like odds in Vegas, okay? It's legalized gambling. Now, if you have got either the depth of a number of aircraft So what it has allowed us to do is, when we want an aircraft, we go out and we buy an aircraft. And I don't care what it is, how new it is, what the value of it is, we insure it for liability only. We pocket that difference on what we would be paying in aircraft premiums, and we buy another airplane, okay? After the first year, my insurance broker, who's still a very good friend, and in fact retired down to this area, said, Bob, are you sure you know what you're doing? Are you sure you understand the risk you're taking doing this? I said, I sure am, Van. And the third year he came back, he goes, this is working out pretty well for you, isn't it? Yeah, it is. It's working out very well. So it's not for everybody. I do not allow leaseback owners to do it. That your airplane just got rolled up in a ball, and sorry about that, there was no insurance coverage on it. But if you're willing to take that, then the benefits are there. And I am highly motivated to keep my instructors teaching safely in the aircraft. That's a little secret. All right, we kind of blazed through the end.